Yesterday was Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Tomorrow is the national holiday in his honor. His birth was a personal event, one that we all share as part of our common humanity. Tomorrow is a federal and state law enacted after much political wrangling. Yesterday was personal. Tomorrow is political. Today is spiritual. It lies between the mere facts of our existence and our relationship to the world. The fact that we are born and live and die is common to all human beings, and our relationship to the world is governed by the politics and opinions of many. This Sunday lies between King's birthday and his holiday. As a Baptist minister, Sunday was his day. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had a personal life. He was a son of a father and a father himself. Dr. King had a political life. He changed laws. But the core of his being was on Sunday. King believed in justice because he believed in a just God throughout his life. In 1950, an essay, spiritual autobiography, he wrote, "It is quite easy for me to think of God, of love, mainly because I grew up in a family whose love was central and where lovely relationships were ever present. My parents would always tell me that I should not hate the white man, but it was my duty as a Christian to love him. And even though I have never had an abrupt conversion experience, religion has been real to me and closely knitted to life. In fact, the two cannot be separated." And in 1963, while he was in jail, he wrote, "I am in Birmingham because injustice is here. Just as the 8th century prophets left their little villages and carried their 'Thus saith the Lord' far beyond the boundaries of their hometowns, just as the Apostle Paul left his little village of Tarsus and carried the gospel of Jesus Christ to practically every hamlet and city in the Greco-Roman world, I too am compelled to carry the gospel of freedom beyond my particular hometown. Like Paul, I must constantly respond to the Macedonian call for aid." And on the night before he died in 1968, he said, "I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land." King believed in justice because he believed in a just God. Why do Unitarian Universalists believe in justice? The scriptures in which Dr. King found justice also contain passages of great injustice. Leviticus 25 reads, "Your male and your female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. You may also buy some of the temporary residents living among you and members of their clans born in your country. They will become your property." And in the New Testament, from the letters of Paul, "Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear and with a sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ." Passages that are so clearly immoral have diminished the authority of Scripture in our tradition. These brutal passages do not seem worthy of a loving God. and historical criticism, lifting up inconsistencies in the Bible, have even made it a poor witness for the existence of God. We are not a Bible-believing church. Yet we are moved to justice. What are those core beliefs that move us to justice? King often quoted a Unitarian precursor, Thomas Jefferson, who said that all men were created equal and endowed by their Creator with the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Jefferson's theology, as slight as it may have been, still affirmed that human rights are derived from God. By the mid-19th century, Emerson blurred the lines between God and humanity, stating, "There is no bar or wall in the soul where we, the effect, cease, and God, the cause, begins." At the turn of the 20th century, Unitarian architect Frank Lloyd Wright had a lower conception of God. He said, "I believe in God, only I spell it nature." And another UU architect, R. Buckminster Fuller, said, "God is a verb, not a noun." And that speaks to the UU tradition, that God is not words, not proclamations, not statements of belief. It is the reality of our actions towards justice. If we have no actions towards justice, we don't, not a tradition that has dogma to fall back on. Without our action, we have no God. If there is a God, God is expressed through humanity. And if there is no God, human activity is even more vital. Members of our churches have been critical to the defense of human rights and freedom. Clarence Darrow, the agnostic Unitarian lawyer that defended Mr. Scopes for teaching evolution in school, said, "You can only protect your liberties in this world by protecting the other man's freedom." Jesus said, "The truth will set you free." Darrow said, "Chase after the truth like all hell, and you'll free yourself, even though you'll never touch its coattails." When it comes to defending human rights, Unitarian Universalists have risen to the cause. Mary White Ovington was a founder of the NAACP. Margaret Sanger founded Planned Parenthood. Roger Baldwin founded the American Civil Liberties Union. Linus Pauling won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 1954, then focused on nuclear disarmament and won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1963, just before King won it himself. Whitney Young was the head of the Urban League in the 60s and a colleague of King's. And former UU President William Schultz is the current head of Amnesty International. We act on behalf of humanity for the sake of humanity. Those of you who have been here for over a couple years will remember Ada Kozier. Ada, as a Jew, escaped Nazi Germany in the 30s and worked for civil rights up in Yonkers before coming down here to live with her sister, and had never attended any religious service until She came here from New York and said, I need to find out where the liberals are in North Carolina. And someone told her to come here, and she joined our congregation at the age of 88. And at the age of 96, while she was dying, I asked, well, what do you believe? And she said, I believe in the holiness of humanity and the universe, including the catastrophes. It's not all goodness and light, you know. And I think of that, you know, the holiness of humanity. From wherever it is derived, from being created in the image of God, or from its intrinsic worth that we are here. And the catastrophes that we've experienced in this world recently with war and the tsunami, that somehow even in that, there is the holiness of humanity. We act on behalf of humanity for the sake of humanity. King was aware of Unitarian Universalists. He was our Ware lecturer at the 1966 General Assembly. And he said in that speech, my own personal experience with Unitarian Universalism began when I was a student at Boston University back in the early 50s. I can remember on several occasions visiting the Arlington Street Church, where your distinguished Dr. Greeley pastored at the time. And I can remember beyond that, in the early years of my ministry, indeed beyond that, in the early years of the bus boycotts in Montgomery, Alabama. 3 of your ministers visited and encouraged me during that very trying and often difficult period. I also want to acknowledge your massive participation through your Commission on Religion and Race in the events in Alabama during 1965. Now, this support expressed itself both before and after the death of your colleague and mine, the Reverend James Reeb. He was aware of our movement, and also aware that though his sense of justice was derived from a sense of a just God, that there was a sense of justice among Unitarian Universalists. He said, I would be the last to condemn the thousands of sincere and dedicated people outside of the churches who have labored unselfishly through humanitarian movements to cure the world of social evils. I would rather a man be a committed humanist than an uncommitted Christian. And King often quoted the 19th century Unitarian Theodore Parker saying, the arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. This is a faith statement that can be shared by a theist and an atheist alike. We continue to work for justice not because we always win, but because we believe. Even in the face of contradicting information, we believe that eventually the world can be a better place as a result of our actions. Committed Christians and committed humanists have one thing in common. They do not wait for the universe to bend towards justice. We do our best to reach up and bend it. To be part of the solution, we must participate. Tomorrow gives us opportunities for token participation in the racial equality. At 7:30, there will be a prayer breakfast at the Benton Convention Center. At 10:30, there will be a march from Mount Zion Baptist Church to the Benton Convention Center. And so it's usually about 40 degrees, I think we're expecting tomorrow. I don't think we're expecting rain as we had in some days. I'll be standing at the end of the driveway, so you'll be able to see me. And I hope to see a lot of you there. And at noon, at the Benton Center, there is a convenience, an observance, and those who don't wish to walk a mile and a half will see you there. Save us our seats. At 2 p.m., there was a family event at the Central Library. And at 4 p.m. at Wake Forest, there's a dinner followed by a performance by the Wake Forest and Winston-Salem state choirs. And then today, we can see Bob and the Twin City Choristers over at Grace Presbyterian Church. We should participate in these observances because the King holiday is about peace and justice, and that is a goal that we share in common. It is a goal for all humanity, and we should be present. But that should not be the end of our participation. We do not want to be known for token participation in human rights. For this, after all, is the cornerstone of our faith. Throughout the year, there are opportunities to participate. There was an announcement this morning about change, and it's an opportunity to work with people of all faiths and all cultures to make tangible improvements in the lives of the people of Winston-Salem. The AIDS Care Service helps people with HIV, and this disease disproportionately affects the African American population. Habitat for Humanity and the Housing Partnership are two organizations that build low-income housing in this community. In February, there is a UU conference on anti-racism in South Carolina. I plan to attend, and I would like several of our members to join me and help this congregation understand what work still needs to be done, both in changing ourselves and to be better able to change the world. We are not a faith that offers salvation for saying the correct prayer, nor do we promise a heavenly reward for good deeds. We have to look at the intrinsic reasons for doing good. We have to be good for goodness sake, for the sake of the holiness of humanity. If we prefer justice to injustice, we must work for justice. Throughout the coming year, let us continue to write our legislators. Let us find the work we need to do. It's all around us. And more importantly, let us find the will to do it.